Bienvenidos al Cafecito del Día, brought to you by the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement. Our conversations are inspired by the moments of togetherness that nuestra comunidad shares over un cafecito.
Bienvenidos. Soy Carmen Rodríguez. In today's episode, we are honored to welcome Ely Bahena, a LCLAA Trabajadoras Fellow, community advocate and justice-driven young leader from La Villita, and chief of staff for the 22nd Ward in Chicago. We'll be having an important conversation about how los hijos de la Villita, los hijos de los trabajadores inmigrantes, have come together, showing incredible strength during the Chicago raids. We'll explore how anti-immigrant policies are shaping their lives, their sense of responsibility, and the challenges they face as they navigate growing up amid fear and uncertainty. Acompáñenos. Gracias, Ely, por estar con nosotros en este Cafecito del Día. Welcome.
Hi, Carmen. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor here being able to share some of our stories here from Chicago.
You have been working close by organizations, community members in Chicago, and you experience firsthand algo que está impactando a las familias latinas en este momento. Can you share your experience? How was it and what happened?
Yeah, almost about a month ago to this day, I was unlawfully detained by Border Patrol when I was doing rapid response work with one of my team members. I've been part of doing the rapid response work here in my community since January of this year. And I will say, as someone who is a US citizen, daughters of immigrants, I take that, it's very personal, and I take that situation for what it was. It was difficult. It was difficult for my family. It was difficult for my team, for my colleagues. I just disappeared for more than 6 hours, and people didn't know where I was. At the same time, Border Patrol and ICE were creating chaos here in our community. And I had a lot of support. We relied on our local elected officials. My mom had to sign some documents to be able to find me, and they were able to locate me, like I mentioned, about 6+ hours later, almost 7 hours later. And the situation was an intimidating situation. It is intimidating for someone to unlawfully go into your car and remove you physically. It's intimidating to see individuals with guns facing you when all you have is your body and your whistle. That's all I had on me. And it's very difficult because we see so many families being separated. And like I mentioned, I have the privilege to be a US citizen, where they were able to confirm that I was indeed a US citizen and later released. A few days earlier, my uncle, who was a tamale vendor, who's lived in this country for over 30 years, was detained. And unfortunately, he remains in a detention center. He's now been transferred to a detention center in Michigan. So having this trauma happen back to back with my family has been one of the most difficult times. You never think it's going to happen to you, and you prepare for the worst. And I've spent my career advocating for immigrant families just like mine. And I'm so happy to be able to support the people that I support. But these days, these weeks have felt a little harder for me.
We stand in solidarity with you, Ely. And we also know that you have been working closely with another young leaders, young Latino leaders, young community members in Chicago, a quienes se les conoce como los hijos de la Villita. So how youth, niños y niñas, are stepping up to defend their parents' rights.
That's one of the most beautiful parts of all of this year, that resilience that we have as children of immigrants. And the Hijos of La Villita, that I named them, has come from what it sounds like, the children of Little Village. We are a Mexican immigrant community. We're first generation children. And just what's happened the last couple of weeks, the way they've stood up, including my own family, my little cousins, has been powerful. It's hard not to get emotional when you speak of them. I had some elementary schools planned a walkout, and their youngest kids were third graders, so about 8 years old, all the way to 8th grade. And then we also had some high school students leading a march that went all of down our 26th Street corridor. That's 2 miles. And they all gathered and they went to our arch and they spoke for their parents. And I think that was the most beautiful part as someone who I know what it's like growing up here in this neighborhood. I lived here for the last 30 years. And to see them being like, I'm speaking out for my parents, I'm organizing for my parents, I'm standing up for my parents because we have that privilege to be able to do so. But some kids so young, an 8-year-old shared her story about her grandpa being detained. And she explained she was coloring her picture book when her mom told her what had happened to her grandpa. And she says, like, I won't give up. I won't be sad because my grandpa is a nice person, a good person. What they're seeing on TV is not real. And I think there's another part to it that I also give kudos to the Hijos de la Vita that are my age now, in their 30s, who have stayed in their neighborhood, who have invested in their neighborhood, who work in their neighborhood. I couldn't imagine doing this when I was younger. And now we have teachers, we have principals, we have school administrators who are those first gen kids that are supporting children that go to school now. One of the things that was so heartbreaking, I've been dealing with my own trauma, and I keep telling people that I hear whistles everywhere now from doing this rapid response. And then when the children told us what the whistle sounds meant to them when they're inside the schools, hearing through the windows, is that means their parent might be gone, that they might get out of school and their parent might not be there to greet them. That was one of the most heartbreaking things that I realized, like the trauma that's going to impact us for decades. Here in our community, we talk about the pandemic and the impacts on our children. And I'm thinking about what they've seen because we've had Border Patrol terrorizing us. We've had tear gas being deployed, pepper spray. And this has happened all along our community and has also impacted children. Most recently, 3 weeks ago, a 1-year-old was affected by pepper spray. There was a flash grenade that was thrown close to a 6-year-old young kid. And we think about how it affects us adults, how we're living day to day, but the way that our children are always so resilient, but it's so powerful to see them organized this way and have the support of the community. I'm just really proud of them.
That's a powerful story, a powerful thing to share. We know that kids are and have assumed many responsibilities due to the context that we already are talking about and we are living in. How are the Latino children and teens navigating responsibilities like translating, caregiving, advocating for their parents, and the whole family?
That's something that we've seen. And again, it comes with that privilege from being US citizens. Then now they have to step into this role of leading their families. And I've seen it with families that I've worked very closely with, where their children have to be the ones responsible for gathering the paperwork, for making calls to attorneys. In the community, we've also seen children go and doing the grocery shopping. We've seen them alone in the stores, kind of carrying that weight now from their family. And I've seen it most in my cousins. My uncle, like I mentioned, he's a tamale vendor and was detained while he was selling tamales. The next day, my little cousin, who's 19 years old, sophomore in college, and her 17-year-old sister, who's a senior in high school, decided to go back out there from the same spot that my uncle was unlawfully detained from and go sell tamales because that's their livelihood. That's how they're going to pay the rent. That's how they're going to support their family. They're the ones leading that charge. And it's so difficult to be able to see them because you remember what it's like navigating these systems in this country that were made for us. I remember how when I was little and 6 years old, my mom would tell me lie that she understood English. So they would see us at the hospital faster so we wouldn't have to wait for an interpreter. We continue to carry that weight through this. And I hope that the support that we're giving them through nonprofits, through the work we're doing with the rapid response group, kind of alleviates that support. But again, moving forward, los hijos de la vida need that support.
Your own story is part of this reality. The kids' stories is part of this reality that we're living in right now and that is impacting especially Latino families. How can kids handle or manage the pressure of supporting and protecting your communities, their communities, and their family members while pursuing your own dreams?
The most important thing for us to support our children and our youth is to listen to them. There was some high school students from the Little Village High School that came to our office and they're like, hey, we're planning to do this. How do I make it happen? Can you contact the police department? Who do I have to reach out to? We helped them create lists of safe spaces in the community along the route. We tapped into local volunteers to support them and be a parade marshal. That was my role for that day, to step back and be there for them. That's the first part. And I think for myself, it is a part of that story where, like I said, these weeks have been really hard. When my uncle was detained, I was at work when I heard that, and I left work. Later that day, I had to hop on a Zoom call while I'm waiting for the tow truck to come and pick up my uncle's minivan that was left there. And because I was prepping for a rapid response workshop for the whole Southwest side, through my work in my office, I was leading that. We were supposed to, and it was a beautiful event. We had over 500 volunteers come that day to get trained on Know Your Rights, rapid response. Educators were there supporting. And it was so hard that at the same time, I had to manage what was happening with my family, provide that physical and emotional support that they need, but also because of the work that I do, show up 100% for my community because I was helping lead these workshops. I was helping prepare all these things. And at that moment, I felt so hopeless. And I got emotional about it because it is an emotional subject. And I felt hopeless because there was only so much I could say to my mom. There was only so much I could say to my little cousins. I want them to have their dad back. I want my family to be together again. And all I could do was really talk to my little cousin and be like, this has been my experience with families separated. And you have a decision to make whether you share your story or not, whether you show up or not. And I could only, give you the advice I can give. You can choose. And the way that she has chosen to lead and speak about her story and inspire other youth to come out and share their stories for their family, I am so proud of her. I have two roles with the city of Chicago. One is the chief of staff for an alderman, and one is an elected police district council on transparency and accountability. So one of the things that I am working on right now with my fellow district council members is to call for a hearing in the city of Chicago to see how, if any, there's been involvement, collaboration, communication between the Chicago Police Department and Department of Homeland Security, ICE, Border Patrol. That's kind of one of the things that I feel like I can do in my position. I can be there for my community in this way through the roles that I have. I can give that support to my family. But one thing that I learned during the pandemic servicing immigrant communities is that I'm also one person. And I'm very happy to be able to tap into the amazing team I work with, to friends and family, because we never do the work alone. Even when I'm able to do the things in my community, I have my partner at home who supports me and holds things down at home. I have my sister who's been my number one volunteer, my mom who's been my number one volunteer at the door, servicing community. There's nothing they've ever said no to me. And what I told my little cousin is that I know the work I've done in the community for those 15 years. And I know one thing, community shows up for you. And they've shown up for Little Village. They've shown up for the Hijos de la Villita. They've shown up for my cousin. They've shown up for me. And it's two things where I'm so angry about a lot of things. I'm so sad about a lot of things. But I also feel so much love and support where I've never felt hopeless, where I've never felt defeated. And I think that's at least what I can walk away with in this experience.
What changes was there in local policies, the community support system, or national reforms do you believe are necessary to reduce racial profiling and ensure the Latino children are not forced to grow up too quickly due to fear and instability and all this context that we have talked about?
One of the biggest things I would continue to advocate for is we need comprehensive immigration reform. That's something advocates have been trying to do for so long. We were also, and again, I bring up the pandemic because there's so many similarities in the way that it's been isolating and the way that we've seen our commercial corridor here in 26th Street be impacted. But we also need that support. And that starts with local policy. So I think making sure that not only Chicago, not only Illinois is a welcoming city, that we have the Illinois Trust Act, but continue to advocating state to state. And having that support from our unions is also very important. I first got connected to LCLAA through the Trabajadoras Fellowship, advocating for trabajadoras' rights and equal pay. And I think the closer we're advocating for those local policies, the closer we get for our workers to be safer in order to have safe spaces, and continuing to advocating that on the local and national level is going to make a better future for all our children. My parents crossed rivers, mountains for their children, for me to have a better future. And I've had the privilege to be able to support my community now through my work. And if we continue to invest in our students and our youth and people like me when I was younger, we're going to see that investment across the United States.
How can community organizations, LCLAA chapters and members, unions, and allies better support a los hijos de la Villita in their fight for justice, dignity, and protection for their families?
One of the most important things that I mentioned before is making sure that we're listening to our children and our youth and the way they want to lead, they want to see things, invite them to be part of that table. Because that's when we hear new voices, and those are the voices we should be cultivating. They're our leaders now. They're part of that presence, so we have to make sure they're included. But I think in continuing that work, like I mentioned, making sure that we're continuing advocating for those safe jobs, those well-paying jobs that support their families is going to be very helpful to our youth so they could get involved in however way they want to, whether that be the trades, whether it be a union job. That's something that's going to support them and support their family. But also, I will say that to continue the same work that you're doing, because I know the Chicago chapter has been incredible. They are part of citizenship workshops. They are part of showing up at rallies and advocating for our immigrant community. Those are easy steps to tap in. One of the things that I'm very proud of our community and Little Village is we have our beautiful 26th Street corridor. It's a commercial corridor made up of family immigrant businesses, and we are the second highest grossing commercial corridor in Chicago. We bring in about $900 million in revenue annually. And our businesses have seen a drastic decrease in people coming to the neighborhood and eating there. So I think something so easy, come visit our neighborhood, come eat at our restaurants. One of the things that a lot of local organizations and groups have done, it's host a whistle party, which is a whistle kit that the Pilsen Art Community House has created, a little packet and guidance on how to create these things that were kind of our lifeline for the last couple of months, and continue to educate yourself, continue to host these Know Your Rights. It's never too late to get involved, and people can reach out to me if they need any way to get started. I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much, Ely. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done in Pilsen con los hijos de la Villita. Thank you for being on the front line of response at this difficult time. Gracias. Gracias por estar con nosotros en este Cafecito del Día.
Gracias, Carmen. Y nada más digo, como hija de inmigrante, mi mamá dice que haz todo el corazón. Cuando haz todo el corazón, nada te duele. And it's been a privilege to be able to support my community in this way. And thank you for having me.
La lucha de los hijos de la Villita cannot and must not be carried alone. This is a call to action to all LCLAA members and union siblings. Stand shoulder to shoulder with these young leaders. Show up in their defense. Support their organizing. Amplify their stories and help build the protections and policies their families deserve. Justice requires all of us. Juntos. Y en este momento, nuestra unión es fuerza y poder. Together, we can ensure that los hijos de la Villita no solo continúen la lucha, but win it. As we close today's conversation, we take a moment to honor the active, fearless role that los hijos de la Villita have taken en este momento crítico. While their families face persecution, uncertainty, and the weight of anti-immigrant policies, estos jóvenes have stepped forward with extraordinary clarity and conviction. Los hijos de la Villita nos han dado un ejemplo de organización. They have spoken out, protect their communities, and reminded us all of what true courage and resilience look like. To every young leader standing up for your parents and your families, your neighbors and your future, gracias por su valor. Su fortaleza nos inspira. Your bravery guides us, and your voices are shaping a more just society. Nos escuchamos en el próximo Cafecito del Día.
El Cafecito del Día is part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network